Everybody, this is Bishop Barron. I'm at another cemetery here in Oxford, and I'm at the grave of still another of my great literary and theological heroes, Clive Staples Lewis, C.S. Lewis. And there's so much to say about Lewis. You know, he was part of that wonderful sort of mid-20th century literary and intellectual revival where so many leading figures were using their art to propagate the Christian faith. So obviously Tolkien, but you think of Graham Greene, you think back in the States, someone like Thomas Merton, you think of a Dorothy Day, now in a somewhat different context. But there was this tremendous revival. W.H. Auden comes to mind. Something I kind of regret that after Vatican II, there has not been a similar phenomenon, and that's worth thinking about a little bit. But Lewis was part of that. I first read Mere Christianity, his masterpiece, when I was a kid. But it wasn't until many years later, I was on a retreat, I remember, and I wandered to the bookstore where I was on the retreat. I found Mere Christianity and decided, I'm going to buy that and read it during the retreat. And I don't know what it was. Just that point in my life, I was really ready for it, and the book just sang to me. And I've been using it a lot in my own evangelical work. I recommend it all the time to people when they ask, it's a good book about, introducing people to Christianity. So during the Second World War, he produced this masterpiece, which has, continued to have enormous impact. I think, too, as I mentioned, when I was at Tolkien's grave, he's part of that group, the Inklings, these Oxford literary men who had devoted themselves to evangelicalism, to evangelizing. And of course, Lewis's stories now have made their way through films, all over the world. You think of these two kind of tweedy, middle-aged gentlemen from Oxford, but they had this absolutely powerful impact on the world. An extraordinary thing. Lastly, I'm thinking of these. Yesterday we visited Winston Churchill's grave, and now Tolkien and Lewis. Churchill died 65, Lewis 63. Same day as JFK, by the way, which is very interesting. November 22nd, 1963. Then Tolkien dies in 1973. So within 10 years, all three of these figures die. Their generation was very much shaped by what they would have called the Great War. We call it World War I. What they saw there was this titanic struggle between good and evil. And Churchill lived it. In the Second World War, he in a very political way, was engaged in that struggle. And these two men, Tolkien and Lewis, did it literarily. I think what's interesting is they intuited that this struggle in a way is always going on. And the key is to stand and fight, not surrender to it, not join the dark side, but fight, Churchill very much in the trenches, in fact. These two men in a literary way, but I think that's a great lesson for everybody. We're always involved to some degree in the great struggle. Do we take up arms? I don't mean that literally. I mean, do we enter into the struggle or not? In some ways, that's the central question of life. Anyway, a lot of these things are kind of coursing through my mind as I visit these beautiful and prayerful places. Say a prayer for C.S. Lewis, and God bless you.